Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So I aim to shed light on a viewpoint often neglected in the discourse between Twelver Shi'ism and Sunni Islam. Regrettably, the pivotal disagreement between Ithna Ashariya and Ahlul Sunnah is almost always overlooked. It's worth noting that when a Sunni converts to Twelver Shi'ism, the reasons cited rarely, almost never have anything to do with the principal distinguishing feature of Ithna Ashariya, a feature so critical that it is, in fact, the basis from which the entire sect derives its name. A critical question, unfortunately, goes unasked by many before converting to Twelver Shi'ism, a question that, if considered, would undoubtedly deter them from embracing Twelver Shi'ism. This question pertains to the concept of 12 infallible imams. In online debates, proponents of Twelver Shi'ism often sidestep the necessity of substantiating the imamate of all 12 imams, instead diverting attention to tangential arguments that fail to affirm the core of their doctrine. Such discussions are frequently marred by logical fallacies, leading some Sunnis, sadly, to be misled by these deceptive tactics. Twelver scholars are unequivocal in their assertion that faith does not merely entail acknowledging Ali radiallahu anhu's appointment by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or believing in some generic imam from the Ahlul Bayt. They hold a unanimous consensus that rejecting even one imam amounts to rejecting all the imams. There is no room for partial credit in the belief in imama. In Al-I'tiqadat by As-Saduq, on page 104, this belief is stated explicitly. Saduq says, "It is our conviction that one who rejects the imama of Amir al-Mu'mineen and the imams that follow is akin to denying the prophethood of all anbiya. Similarly, accepting the imama of Amir al-Mu'mineen while rejecting any of the subsequent imams is comparable to believing in all the anbiya and then denying the prophethood of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam." Was this perspective unique to Saduq? Clearly it was not. Further evidence is found in the writings of his student, Al-Mufid, who confirms that Imami scholarship unanimously supports this view. In Awail al-Maqalat, on page 44, Al-Mufid writes, "The Imamiyya are in complete agreement that anyone who denies the imam of any imam and the obedience Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed for them is a deviant kafir, deserving of eternal punishment in the fire of Jahannam." We could dedicate this entire video to quoting from the most esteemed scholars and even the purportedly divinely appointed infallible imams of Twelver Shi'ism who echo this belief. Yet, the references already mentioned, highlighting a unanimous consensus, suffice to establish the critical point at hand. It's imperative to understand that merely expressing affection for the Ahlul Bayt, a sentiment Sunnis already hold, does not meet the criteria set forth by Twelver Shi'ism, nor does taking knowledge from the Ahlul Bayt, as Sunnis already do. Even acknowledging the Imama of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, and his appointment by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Khadirukum, which Sunnis do not accept, does not fulfill the requirements. Twelver Shi'ism predicates its correctness on the acceptance of 13 distinct propositions concerning imamate. There exists a direct correlation, an if and only if relationship, between the collective affirmation of these 13 propositions and the belief in Twelver Shi'ism as the correct form of Islam. The propositions are as follows. Premise of Imam sub 1. Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu was the first divinely appointed infallible imam. Propositions 1 through 12 follow this form, going through each imam in the canonical sequence of 12 infallible imams. The premise of Ghaiba is the acceptance that Muhammad bin Hassan al-Mahdi is currently in occultation and has been for almost 1200 years. The key point here is that these are independent propositions. Not a single one of these propositions intrinsically or inherently entails another. Premise of Imam sub 1, a 12er, would argue is established using various arguments, including Hadith al-Ghadir, Hadith al-Manzila, tafsirs of Surah al-Ma'idah, ayah 55, and so on and so on. There is no shortage of 12er misrepresentations and appeals to distortions and fabrications in order to misrepresent the merits of the fourth Khalifa Rashid, Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, as some kind of appointment or a divinely appointed infallible imam. Scholars of Ahlul Sunnah have exhaustively responded to each one of these misrepresentations, and it is indeed important to do so. If we are upon haqq, then that should be reflected in the fact that our positions are consistent and can be defended by any kind of attack. However, the purpose of this video is not to address these misrepresentations. Several videos on some of these topics have been made in the past. Articles have been written on others. And if there are any additional arguments found to be even remotely compelling, you can rest assured that the Sunnah Discourse team will promptly respond to them, either in the form of a video or an article. Instead, this video focuses on the critical bottleneck, the obstinate impasse, the impossible hurdle that Twelver Shi'ism faces in proving its correctness as the true form of Islam. Achieving this, a feat that their scholars have not managed in over a millennium, would prompt my immediate conversion to Twelver Shi'ism. We define another proposition in the following form. The propositions of appointment. P appointed, I, J. This states that divinely appointed infallible Imam I has appointed as their successor as the next divinely appointed infallible Imam individual J. This must be proven for every pair of consecutive Imams in the canonical sequence of 12 Imams. If, and only if, a Twelver succeeds in doing so, the claim that Twelver Shi'ism is the correct form of Islam is proven. It is valid to say that the previous set of propositions reduces to the one shown on screen now. Regrettably, for the Twelvers, the crucial step of appointing successive Imams presents an insurmountable challenge for the Twelver Shia, rendering their claim unverifiable. The evidence they provide, confined to their own texts, lacks authority for non-Twelvers. The Quranic verses and Hadiths cited fall short of mentioning the essential appointment claims pivotal for substantiating their doctrine. The proofs deemed persuasive by Sunnis do not encompass these appointment claims. Consider the frequently cited evidences for imamah by the Twelvers. Quran, Surah 2, Ayah 124. Quran, Surah 33, Ayah 33. Quran, Surah 4, Ayah 59. Hadith al-Kisa, Hadith al-Thaqalain, the Hadith of the 12 Caliphs. Notably, none of these sources offer explicit proof of the vital appointment claims Twelvers seek to establish. Specifically, there is no evidence suggesting, for example, that Musa ibn Ja'far, the seventh Imam in the canonical sequence of 12 Imams, appointed Ali ibn Musa Rida as the next infallible Imam, nor is there any mention of any of the latter 9 Imams. While each of these sources warrants a detailed discussion, a concise examination reveals their insufficiency in establishing the critical claim of divine appointment. Let's examine some of these claims. Surah Baqarah, Ayah 124. Remember when Abraham was tested by his Lord with certain commandments, which he fulfilled. Allah said, I will certainly make you into a role model for the people. Abraham asked, what about my offspring? Allah replied, my covenant is not extended to the wrongdoers. Again, repeating that this verse does not establish the position of imamate as some kind of divinely appointed figure who the ummah must unconditionally obey. Such responses have already been put out before and are available for you to read and reflect on. But even if we concede this interpretation, which we do not, this still does not establish who the imam actually is. Quran 33:33. Settle in your homes and do not display yourselves as women did in the days of pre-Islamic ignorance. Establish prayer, pay alms tax, and obey Allah and His Messenger. Allah only intends to keep the causes of evil away from you and purify you completely, O member of the Prophet's family. As Ahlul Sunnah, we do not believe that the Ahlul Bayt have been purified from any kind of sin in some kind of takwini way as the Twelvers believe. Such a belief is completely untenable with the rest of the passage. However, in keeping with the theme of this video, we emphasize here that the verse does not establish Ali ibn Musa Rida, the 8th Imam in the canonical sequence of 12 Imams, as a member of the Ahlul Bayt. Nor does it establish Musa ibn Ja'far as being from the Ahlul Bayt. Nor does it preclude Imam Zayd ibn Ali from being from the Ahlul Bayt, mentioned in this ayah. You get the point. Surah 4, Ayah 59. O believers, obey Allah and obey the Messenger and those in authority among you. Should you disagree on anything, then refer to Allah and His Messenger, if you truly believe in Allah and the Last Day. This is the best and fairest resolution. Again, the Ulul Amr in this ayah are not infallible Imams whose obedience is unconditionally obligatory. This is abundantly obvious by the wording of the ayah itself, not to mention the Sabab an-Nuzul confirming this as well. Once again, however, we emphasize that even if we concede, which we do not, that Ulul Amr are divinely appointed infallible Imams, the ayah itself does not identify who the Ulul Amr are. Hadith al-Kisa and Hadith al-Thaqalain, while significant merits of the Ahlul Bayt, if the 12 interpretations are to be granted for the sake of argument, do not delimit the Ahlul Bayt to the 12 Imams, nor do they specify the mechanism of appointment for each Imam. The Hadith of the 12 Caliphs, perhaps my favorite topic to discuss in all of Sunni Twelver discourse, does not specify who the Caliphs are. The only extent to which the set of Caliphs is narrowed is that it mentions that the 12 Caliphs must be from Quraysh. In fact, all of the Umayyad and Abbasid Caliphs would fall into this category, as would hundreds of millions of other individuals throughout Islamic history. There does not exist even the slightest proof that these 12 Caliphs are in fact the 12 Imams in the canonical 12-verse sequence. The Hadith of the 12 Caliphs, intriguing for its mention of Quraysh lineage, remains ambiguous without specifying that these Caliphs are the canonical 12 Imams of Twelver Shi'ism. This lack of specificity fails to support the Twelver claim, leaving their argument unsubstantiated. Delving deeper into the issue of the appointment claims within Twelver Shi'ism is critical to underscore the stark absence of compelling evidence that would persuade any rational individual, be it a Sunni, Zaydi, Christian, atheist, Jew, or Hindu, to accept these claims as binding. This assertion isn't just about religious or sectarian allegiance. It's a matter of objective scrutiny and the standards of evidence applied across the board. The evidence purported by the Twelver Shia, upon closer, unbiased examination, crumbles under the weight of critical analysis. If one were to apply the same rigorous criteria for detecting fabrications universally recognized in historical and hadith sciences, the foundations supporting these appointment claims appear not just shaky, but decidedly false. The acceptance of these critical appointment claims hinges solely on a dogmatic acceptance of the Twelver Hadith corpus as authoritative, as though it were an undisputed fact. Even within this framework, the claim remains untenable. This critique goes beyond mere theological disagreement, delving into the integrity of historical narratives and the methodologies employed by Twelver compilers of Hadith. The concerns of tampering with narrations to advance a specific sectarian agenda are not baseless, but are the result of thorough scrutiny of the source material. Such deliberate manipulations, intended to retrofit historical events and figures into a preconceived theological framework, cast a significant shadow on the authenticity of these claims. While a detailed investigation into the evidence of hadith alteration by Twelver compilers is a subject that merits its own in-depth analysis, it's essential to acknowledge that even a preliminary review uncovers alarming discrepancies and modifications. Let's use an example to clarify this argument. Ismaili Shias employ the same proofs for their claims. An intellectually lazy Ismaili Nizari Aga Khani Shia might argue similarly, citing Quranic verses like 459 and 2124 to establish the position of Imam, and then suggesting that the virtues of Ali radiallahu anhu qualify him as a divinely appointed infallible Imam. Following this, they might assert that recognizing the imamate of Ali radiallahu anhu alone is sufficient to prove that the current Aga Khan is the earthly embodiment of God's grace or lutf on earth. From an epistemological standpoint, this assertion parallels the claim that acknowledging Ali radiallahu anhu's divine imamate automatically validates the imamate of the subsequent 11 imams in the Twelver Shia sequence. Therefore, it is essential to emphasize that for an unbiased, rational individual, especially from a Sunni perspective, there is no hujjah or compelling proof that mandates the acceptance of the Twelver Shia's critical appointment claims. The leap from acknowledging historical figures and their revered statuses to accepting a divinely ordained unbroken chain of infallible imams requires evidence of extraordinarily unequivocal nature. Such evidence, however, remains conspicuously absent. In conclusion, the claim that Twelver Shi'ism is the correct form of Islam finds no foothold in the realm of unbiased and rational scrutiny. The insistence on such a claim, in the absence of compelling evidence, feels akin to beating a dead horse. It's an exercise in futility, not because of a lack of willingness to understand or engage with the Twelver Shia perspectives, but due to the unmistakable absence of credible, objective, and universally compelling evidence. Thus, it stands to reason that this particular claim, heavily reliant on the acceptance of disputed appointment claims, can never, should never, and indeed will never be embraced by those seeking truth through an unbiased and rational lens.